Hi, we're on Parak Gimel, Mishnah Aleph of Terumot. So now the Mishnah talks about what happens if you take off Terumah and it turns out that the Terumah that you gave was inappropriate. Says the Mishnah, Hatorem kishut v'nimtzeit mara. Let's say I gave a kishut, squash. V'nimtzeit mara, it turns out it's bad. So the one I took off, it was bitter. It's not edible. Avatiach v'nimtza saruach. Avatiach we translate as a watermelon, or some kind of melon in their times. And it turns out that it's saruach, that it's rotten. Terumah v'yachzor v'yitrom. So you have to give Terumah, but you also have to give yachzor v'yitrom. So it's interesting. You give Terumah actually twice. So the real question is, and the Mishnah is going to deal with is, you have Safek Terumah. Which one is the real Terumah? So the Terumah says the following: Terumah v'yachzor v'yitrom. The Terumah says, v'notnein shneim lakohen. You have to give both of them to the kohen, but the kohen noten lo dumei harishona shigdola min hashniya. The kohen has to pay you for the value of the first Terumah, because you don't have to give the kohen twice. But you don't know which one is Terumah or not, as we'll soon see. That you give Terumah, but you have to give Terumah again. So therefore, since the first one is larger, because in the second case, you're taking off Terumah only from a smaller amount, because you already took off Terumah from the first one, therefore the kohen has to pay you for the first one. Right? The second one is smaller Terumah because you took off the first Terumah. And because the kohen can't prove that the first one is Terumah, and we say that if the kohen is coming to you, the Balabait, and is saying, well, give me both. You say, well, which one is Terumah? The kohen says, I don't know. So therefore, we have a rule of Amotzi Michavero Ala Varaya. If you're trying to take money from someone, you have to prove it. The only one that the kohen can get without having to pay for it is the ketana, the smaller amount, the second one. And he has to pay you money. Now it's the value of Terumah. How much is Terumah worth? And I guess he has to pay you a little bit less because it's rotten Terumah. So that's a real question. Okay. Nonetheless, according to the Terumah, the kohen has to pay the guy, the Balabayit, for the first batch of Terumah, and then he gets the second one for free as Terumah. Now the Kahati brings down that the Gemara, that's the Yerushalmi, that's based on the Yerushalmi. The Bavli says that it's not, the Bavli has a different interpretation and says that the kohen gets both of them for nothing. Because otherwise, what kind of kanas is it? Meaning, the whole point of Terumah v'yachzor v'yitrom is you should have known when you're giving rotten Terumah. You should have known that the one you gave for Terumah is rotten, so therefore it's a kanas. So therefore the Bavli says that according to one opinion, Terumah v'yachzor v'yitrom, he has to go back and give Terumah again, meaning he has to give Terumah twice. You should have been careful. It's almost amazing. You should have realized what you're giving. Similarly, Hatorem chavit shayayin v'nimtzeit shel chometz. So I gave him a barrel of wine, and it turns out that it's vinegar. It got rotten. Im yadua shayita shel chometz ad shelo tarma. If I knew that it was vinegar before I gave it as Terumah, ain't no Terumah. Then it's not Terumah because I'm giving shelo mimino. I can't give chometz on yayin. Okay, it's not appropriate. They're different species, as we said, different kinds of produce. But im mishatarma ichmitza. What if it got rotten afterwards? How is it Terumah? Then it's fine. I gave the kohen wine, and it only turned bad after I already gave it to him, or I designated it as Terumah. Im safek, and if I'm not sure, again we have this rule of Terumah v'yachzor v'yitrom. It's a safek. So therefore the kohen gets the vinegar, but you also have to give him the second batch, the second barrel of wine, as well, with the same machloket as we saw before. So now the Mishnah says, Harishona eina midamat b'fnei atzma. Let's say the first Terumah that I gave now fell into a mixture of chulin. So that's called demai. And if there's less than 100 to 1 of chulin to Terumah, it's considered demai. It's demai, and then it has kedushat Terumah. It's a mixture that's not batel. It's only batel 1 in 100. But the Mishnah says if this Terumah, the first one, either one of these, the first or the second, fell into chulin, harishona eina midamat b'fnei atzma. The rishon, the first batch, can't make it demai. And you're not chayav. If a person eats Terumah, he has to pay a chomesh. He has to pay an additional fifth as a kanas, as a fine. But if he ate this, he's not chayav chomesh. Why? The reason is here. Why? It doesn't make it demai. Okay, maybe the second batch is Terumah, the first is not Terumah, meaning each one is a safek. It's not definite Terumah. And the same is true of the second batch. If the second batch fell into chulin, it's also doesn't make demai, and also isn't chomesh for the same reason. that each one of the Terumot, the first one and the second one, are Safek Terumah. We'll stop here. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to contact me at rspolter@gmail.com. We'll dedicate this learning to the memory of my father, Rav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Have a great day.